Quetzalcoatl.
Going?
Check.
Bass.
Easy check. Episode 5.
Oh, on another note, I think we should work in part of one of our songs as the intro music.
That's right.
I was thinking the breakdown in Infidel Defiler, where it goes, right? Just have that part.
Do good.
Yeah. Alrighty.
We could be our own band, opening band.
We
House
are.
band. Just have our instruments.
We definitely are.
What's up? This time we are starting with proper Boom Felazi bong tokes here. Brought to you by Boom Felazi.
Government glass.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and Boom Felazi. That's right. Not government.
Sponsored.
Team.
It's all the same.
It's like Canada and America, but all America.
I was Pop Warner, actually, not All American.
So, episode 5, Tales from the Temple of Doom. We got my main fucking man, Adam Valdez, a.k.a. Boom Felazi. Felazi is how it's pronounced, but Boom can tell you himself that he likes when people pronounce it all crazy different ways.
Oh, I enjoy that. I've been called 30 ohm.
Yeah, I think just
Mike
to
still
jump
calls
into
you
it,
that.
why don't you tell us where the name came from?
Yep.
All right, well, being a musician, there's an album by Max Roach called Boom, and I always dug that word, that title, and at the time, this was like glasspipes.org days. This is 97, 98, and so you had to have your moniker, your little hidden name, underground name, and so I developed it. Usually you get called something, but Felazi's phonetic for feel lazy. So.
Oh, you know what? I hate to say it. That's the first time I've ever.
I've told you.
I know, and that's what's bad. ADHD or some shit.
So, but it was kind of like, at the time I was big into reggae music, and so it was like, Boom Felazi. So Boom Felazi, it reads. So when people say it, however they say it, I don't mind. But it is Boom Felazi. And it was just to have, and it wasn't even supposed to be me. It was just supposed to be like a company name. And I had people write checks to Adam Felazi, to Boom Valdez, and the banks would still cash it. They understood.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's Boom Felazi. It was just to be kind of not corporate, but have a brand and a logo was big for me at the time.
And you started blowing glass in?
1998.
Yep. And what made you, go for it?
I being an artist, knowing ceramics, wood, even metalworking, the glass pipe was the first thing I saw artistic-wise that I couldn't, reverse engineer. I didn't know. I had no clue how they were putting it together. A two-piece stand-up Sherlock I thought was one, kind of like soft glass. I didn't understand what lamp working was. And so that's, I think, was the main draw, was like, how the heck are they doing this? So got a book from the library, used the internet for the first educational purpose, I should say. Hacker glass in Buena Park, old-timey stuff. Had Pyrex, I was a Pyrex guy. The 12 colors, that whole thing. Meeting some of those old guys. And being privileged to, at that time when it was still very, very underground, was the draw. And at the time we had upperclassmen that would go to Oregon, and they were bringing back, we knew who Dashbach was, and, Bob Batram, we knew those names already, Snodgrass. We used to call him Eric with an A. I think it's Eric Crunk.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So we had all that stuff coming down, and I just was like, what the heck is going on? So went to Hacker, asked a ton of questions.
How'd you find Hacker?
On the internet.
Okay.
They had a single page that had an address and a phone number. had, I think, a picture of a lathe or something. And it was in Buena Park. I was, and being in the Inland Empire, 20, 30 minutes away. She got mad at me. She was like, just go home and melt it. And, I didn't even have didymiums. I was wearing like shade 8 welding glasses and for about 6 months, treated it like ceramics. I'd coil exotics and then coil clear around that. And then I would just kind of never saw a soul blow, Boro lamp work.
Damn.
These were the days we had kids in our neighborhood, but they wouldn't let you go in the garage. You couldn't see it. And so, it was like 6 months of grueling things breaking, jade greens, like not
right. Yeah,
understanding.
the color palette was really limited. Greens for the people out there have traditionally been problematic. They're at this point pretty stabilized, but in the early days, very problematic. And of course, they would look pretty. So we always you try jade being one of the most infamous, and it would check pretty often. And so you were in like Orange County, Riverside County.
This time, Ontario, California.
Ontario, okay, and that's Southern California. And like the first time you saw glass, not the exact first time, but like how were you exposed? Were you exposed through stores, through a buddy, through concert?
Through our friends. My boy Louie they had older friends. We had these two guys, upperclassmen, Todd and Ramon. Todd Lewis is still there, thriving.
T. Lewis.
Ramon is still around, from what I hear. I think he's into the using the ashes, doing the memorial
kind of
glass. Work. Yeah, but they were two local guys that we had access to their glass, and so it was always growing up. I'd seen them. We'd all skate the same, Chaffee High School. We were always there. I didn't see him, but damn, that's Todd Lewis. T-Bone, Todd Ramon. And but I was younger, and I just kind of stayed out of their way and just kept going. And about 6 months in doing this garbage work, my buddy Sean from high school, and this is before Wook was a word. He was dreads to his knees. He was barefoot. I didn't even recognize him, full face of hair. And again, this is 1998, October. And he was up in Santa Cruz. And the name is Hal, is all I really remember him saying, who taught him. But he said he spent 2 years just kind of hanging out, spinning rods in his hands, watching the workers, and they let him get in on it. So that's the one person I can say that actually taught me how to blow glass. He was like, what are you doing? You're blowing off a tube, you're pulling points. I was using, 4 feet of tube and just melting the end and blowing off the backside of it. And he did 3 like cardinal things. He pulled a point, made his little hot dog 1 inch. He did a flare, just like you would like a martini glass. And he's all, this is how you go inside out. He didn't do any inside out, but he's all, this is how you do it. He's all, open it up, get in there, close it back down. And then he did a reversal. But the way he did the reversal was like a 6-inch piece of 1 inch. And he had his little points on there. And then he popped it. He didn't blow it up in a ball. He kept it, hot dog. He popped a little hole here. He popped a little hole there. He put a handle there. So then he had 4 handles. The one's just spinning, almost hitting him. And then he pulled off this one, pulled off that one, took it like this.
That's hilarious.
And now he's got this hot dog spinning this way, heated the whole thing up, and stretched it down. And so
that is amazing.
Oh, it was
that's
wild
the longest way to get to that. But yeah, but I hear you. Like
when you didn't know.
early on, I think the first person I saw blowing glass was Ezra, and same shit. Didn't know how to do anything, and was like using rod to like just blob on the outside of, and maybe try a little fuming because he had seen that. But then trying to marver it all in, like the thought of just like melting it and gravity and blowing back out. No, so he's just like melting and marvering it on the marvering pad, and it's all fucked up. Yeah,
what's crazy is we just had Yushin out, and hopefully one day we get him on the show. But we're just talking, and he was talking about how J-Red was kind of the first person he had seen do just a vac pull
Oh,
or
man.
whatever. And then Sheen said, he's like, I'm pretty sure that he himself was the first person to put stringer in between the sections. And he's like, you know,
The
and
color
again,
rods, putting stringer in between them.
and
yeah.
then doing the, and so, and J-Red had never like done that yet, even still. And like, so I was just like, damn, like it's crazy, like to see that stuff happen for its first time, or just even how it's been so long that you guys are now, you know, innovative, have become such innovators, and you know, pushed it so far. You know, it's crazy. Like,
lucky enough to have gotten in early enough to definitely see a lot of the just basic innovations happen.
Totally.
And maybe even play a role in some of them. But
it's still a very infant thing. I mean, lamp working's been around for a long time, but what the, you know, American pipe maker did with lamp working is, you know, we've, you know, touched the world now.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows about this on a small level.
And we won over the biggest critic of all, which was every other type of glassblower that existed before.
That's true.
The American pipe making scene came to fruition. Because did you experience that when I first got out to Seattle? So that would be basically December 97, so 98.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going from Ithaca, New York to Seattle, which is this flourishing glass scene, both soft glass and flame working. And I shouldn't say both, because also everything. I mean, slump glass and stained glass and all sorts of things. There's tons of hot shops and different things there. But there was a 100% a bias towards flame workers, and then in particular pipe makers.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
And without a doubt, that doesn't exist anymore. It might exist in a few small pockets of old schoolers, but that between the level of craft rising to where it's gotten, and
the pipes that have gotten into museums.
Yeah, and then legitimately the fact that the cannabis connection has become less stigmatized as a result of the laws easing up and everything, makes people more comfortable. I love that moment, and with Corning, you know, we bring it up when they're live streaming. I want to say it was Hoobs and Rhino
and Coil,
and they're taking questions from people, and somebody's like, "What's the perk?" and it's a 2-hole diffie, and then like, "What's the point? What's the function of the piece?" "Oh, it's to consume cannabis concentrate or something."
So good.
How was that stigma in Southern California? Was there probably not? It was probably just not even many like soft glass blowers to even bump into, or
it was real tight. There wasn't
underground stuff.
Even the ones that I got to know later on. I mean, it took us 10 years to find each other. You know, everyone was, and I think with Southern California, we experienced a lot of like the company glass blowing.
I was just going to get to that.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know Boom designed so many different products for big bong companies back in the day, like ADS and Pure
Glass. Yeah.
And
they were distributing my work. And
how did you stumble across that whole
a reggae concert at what's this called now?
The OC Observatory. It was
the
part of the
Galaxy.
Galaxy in the
Galaxy. So I was there for, I think, like a Sizzla concert. And the whole time I'm like flipping this little card in my hand, and then the lights come on, concert's over, and we're sitting at the table, and I look down at it, and it was a shop called One World.
Oh,
and
wow.
They were right here in Orange
Crazy.
County.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, new shop. It was like 2001 or something, 2002 maybe. And so took my little gun case before we used Pelicans, sometimes the rifle cases, and get them from Big Five, and absolutely hiding, walking from your car to the, because it looked bad. And there was stigma. It was, for the longest time, I was a glass blower. I was not a pipe maker.
Yeah.
And now I have no problem telling people flat out, I meet them in public. Oh, what do you do? Oh, I work with glass. So like, what do you do? I'm a pipe maker, So and everyone perks right up, has some, my cousin, and, there's some little story about it. So went to One World, sold some glass. The owner was kind of not from the scene, but definitely had a lot of capital, and decides as he's running a head shop to run a distribution. And we know that guy. And so then I start selling more work to them to distribute. And then it just, what the next progress was, let's just manufacture. And so I saw that go down, and a lot of people know that shop. I've seen a lot of cats come through. I've, worked with some dudes from Philadelphia back in the day. We were trying to Jerome Baker guys. Like we were exposed a lot because it was a very big shop. And so
Roar.
All of them. All of them.
Yeah, you name it.
All the guys, what's that? The Zobs and the Hitmans
Heavy.
of the Heavies of the world. Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah, Michael from Roar, got to shake his hand for like 10 minutes. Like looked into my soul. It was like, I know you.
Was that
German?
Jay?
No,
Michael was like
I think
German,
Michael's his
original.
name.
Yeah,
The German guy. And this is back
Roar,
again
Germany.
in, 2000.
I was still in Washington.
So it was cool. But then that's where I was exposed to a crew of 30. We had day crew, night crew. And I was just there again, me and my boy Tony. We just roll up, I'd sell glass, and we'd go skate at the Santa Ana skate park. And spend 8 hours there, go hit the pizza spot, little Straw Hat Pizza, whatever, Mojo's. We had a blast during those years. And then they eventually were struggling with their ability to design. They were kind of copying like a Roar. They were like part of that full all glass on glass scene, no more grommets. Mm-hmm. And so they eventually hired me to just do design work. I've got a stack of drawings, different designs, and I did my best. We got on glasspipes.org. I was like not trying to bite Toros or any other companies that were doing what we were kind of doing. They didn't really care. They had just a business model, this, that. And so I tried to keep a hold of it, but at the same time exposed to, 12 different ways to make the same piece on a lathe. They had all the hand workers and
was that your first experience with the the lathes and everything?
Correct. Yeah, I didn't know how to use them or didn't use them. And then we were hiring night crew, and there was really no experience necessary. And so I got my brother involved. I was like, Joe, they're paying people to goof around on these really nice machines. And like, come down, you're my brother. I'll make sure you got, everything's nice for you, put you on the straight machines. And so as he did that, I started doing my weekend project, which was boom Felazi tubes. And was doing grommet. I didn't care at the time because Jerome Baker was still big. So I was, silver bubbles. But again, it was just me and my brother, And then eventually. Navajo glass, yeah. And then I met this kid, Kyle and John. He eventually became, I forget what they were called. Maestro glass.
Yes,
yeah. And so we had a falling out. It wasn't a really big deal. It wasn't that ugly, really. We were just tired of each other. But we were, at that time, we did our first trade show, which was 04 Stardust.
Champs.
We had a table in the back. We were like the last. I didn't know how to do this. We got there the morning of. They barely fit us in. We were in front of one of the emergency doors. We shouldn't have even been there. And but I got orders. We had a couple of shops pick things up, and so that moved forward. And that was we went on eBay. We outbid on the lathe, the HSA I got from up in Bellingham. And we actually outbid my employer at Pure Glass.
Oh,
hilarious. We realized right at the end he was trying to buy that lathe too. And so he knew all about it. And so he was teasing us. And I still stuck with the company and still built on the side, took the lathe home and moved forward there. And then eventually moved on with some of the management from that company and developed Boom into a larger situation. But it was still me, my brother, my boy Kevin, his brother Darren, Anthony, the drummer in my band. His cousin was sandblasting for us. Like, my mom was doing janitor work, when she could come in once a week or something, help us out. Little brother doing IT work, on the computer. and it was truly like a family situation. But because we'd come from a larger corporation, we had all the connections throughout the U.S., all the shops, and we were perceived as a much larger situation. And because we kept to ourselves, we weren't an open shop. So there was like guys like Aqualab, like, oh, we don't mess with Boom. They're a bunch of dudes. And it's like, no, it's like really 4 dudes on a lathe, and they're all brothers, you know. And so
when I remember when Boro Farm visited when I was working for you, and then they were like, "Where's all the other glass blowers?" Like, what do you mean? Like, oh, I thought you guys were like a huge production team. I was like,
I think that's also pretty common. I think that
well, that was a thing in Orange
I mean,
County
by
at
that,
the time.
I have a feeling that if during a lot of the, I don't want to say heyday because it's not over, but some of Mothership's peaks, if people, and I'm not dogging on it, but the studio is probably more modest than a lot of people realize. Nowadays, I hear it's pretty sophisticated, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the latest.
Yeah. No, but especially in Orange County, like when I was with government and I'd go pick up glass when Temkin had left UST, and then he had glass stored at the Zob warehouse, and I'd go pick it up there, and those warehouses did have like 30 people blowing glass.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that was
same
for me.
thing with like Medi-Cali, and then eventually like the Roar stuff, and Zob was making heavy as well. So it's just like big rooms like that where like, and then again, boom, it was just the 3 of you on the lathe and scrap, you know, doing more handwork and parts. And I mean, he was on the lathe too, eventually, but
it's way easier to teach someone that doesn't know glass lathe work than it is handwork. So I never developed truly a hand situation till really like you and Megan started showing up and had marble skills, and I wasn't going to show. Like, I was like, dude, get on the lathe. This is how money's made.
Yep.
And so there was that value, but at the same time, being aware of, I knew Doug and Hitman, and there was a lot of outsourcing going on with a lot of those companies. And I was making stuff for other people. They were making stuff for us. And so it was, silly business, but I, again, kept it really, down tight to a small crew. And then eventually that ran its course, no longer wanting to be a part of, like, I always called it like feeding the monster. When you get a little bit too big and spending a lot of energy just keeping the boat afloat. So
that's huge.
Yeah, we pulled back. We ended up still with the small crew, but now where everyone's kind of doing it on their own. We used the old pier shop that got sold to, Megan's to, what were they called?
Damn it, hold on. Proper
Glass,
yeah.
And so ended up
For a
kind
minute.
of, and they were tied with like the Southern Cal Roar guys, and
those pieces became Roars.
yeah,
You ended up designing
100%,
Roar stuff.
More Roars. Oh gosh. So
Roar America.
yeah, but that was part of our deal. Like, they had a small crew, and I was like, yo, put this guy with that guy. Like, I'm really smart at the bigger picture with that kind of stuff, not so much the finite. So, but we did our thing for a little bit, and at the time, you started, I think, Borody or Doro.
Yeah, so I don't know. So I had met Boom. I met you at Glass Roots. I was going to ask, do you remember meeting D-Rec?
I'm sure I saw you. I mean,
At Glass Roots?
No, but just
yeah.
do you remember the first time really?
Gosh, I can't say the first
Right.
time. I mean,
I
your
couldn't
son
fully-
always preceded you, so I knew
I
who
feel
you were.
I said the same
but
thing.
I've never I don't bother people. I always
Were
like,
you
sit
there
back.
at the time when I was pulling that tubing at Temkins? Wasn't that all you, all that showed
Yeah,
up that
we
one
showed
time?
up there.
That's my oldest memory with you all, but there's a lot of the, like, if we were at a trade show, I was drinking hard, I wouldn't have remembered. And that
sure.
would be easy a place where we would have met for the first time.
No, I can remember you like literally meeting you, like you walking up to my booth at Glass Roots in Madison. And
The second Glass Roots, I think it
Yep.
was. Yeah.
And I remember I'd walked by your booth before at Champs and like been attracted to your glass. I didn't know who made it. And then so when you walked up, I didn't know who you were, but I had the government's on my table, and he's like, "These are nice, you make these?" I was like, "No, but I do parts, blah blah blah." And then he's like, "Where you guys at?" I was like, "Orange County." He's like, "I'm in Orange County." I was was like, oh, sick. He's like, yeah, I play like bass with my homie, Tony, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, I played drums. He's like, oh, we should hang out. Got his number, and then him and Tony came over to my parents' house when they were out of town, and we traded like a king crown for one of the governments, and I was super stoked, and we had a blast, and then just started hanging out, and then eventually we shared booths, government and Boom. Yeah. and then eventually I joined your team.
Yeah, we knew Michael from government.
Yeah, that's right.
Already through Pure, and
he was
he recognized
very active. Like, just he was such a parts guy, and like he loved buying machines, and so he was very active in the local Orange County scene like that too and stuff. But then eventually joined Boom's team, and that's when Matt and Megan also, like about a year later, moved to California from Minnesota, and Matt started doing electroforming for like Boom production stuff. Megan was making marbles and parts and stuff as well for Boom. I was doing parts and selling just Boom's work on the road, just going from shop to shop, and that's what like I started building. And so when Boom, when we all left that whole entity or project, and you went to Proper, I started Boro to your Doro. And that was, when did you go to Goosefire? Right after that, right?
Yeah, when we kind of, like, you did your,
I did a couple routes,
round, and then, I think that's when, they sold the shop to Roar.
That's right.
And we were just using it after hours
totally
when we could. So I was like, cool, no problem. Everyone just, skedaddle, go home. And then that's kind of where, like, the team of Boom dissolved.
Yes.
Everyone kind of got day jobs at the time. But me and you were still going strong. And that's so, you were Boro to your Doro at that time. And then you and Hoobs ended up, you were Boro to your Doro out in Florida. Ended up at Grateful J's.
Yep. Actually, even before that, that's funny because my trip started up in Washington. I went up when Silica had a store, and Hoobs and Jop did a show, and I was with Hoobs like at the bar when there was, the opening kind of came up at Goosefire, and then I guess it was Adam V. That's right. Yeah,
that's a good story.
Awesome. That was with the Dick Burger. That opening.
Yes. Dick Burger.
So Adam V had gotten kicked out of the Goosefire, and then Adam Valdez moved in, and which is funny, that joke I was saying, Adam is Hoobs. Yeah. So it was like this three Adam transaction thing kind of happening. And
he had a big, nice.
And I was already at the Goosefire at that point.
You were there. Yep.
Yeah, you were there. I think I'd gotten.
Was Saki probably there?
No, because you took her spot, I thought.
Oh, you're right. I did take her spot.
Lurch. That was
Lurch was there.
Slob. Winston Murdoch. Nerve.
Yeah, 100%.
And then Hoobs' crew, which was like Toby, Katrina.
Was Flexer there at the time?
He might have been working the front.
Oh, you're right. He definitely was.
He wasn't blowing glass.
Flexer was up front still. Mm-hmm. That's when they opened up that front end to host glass blowing classes and everything. And
it was a very ambitious and pretty cool facility, and
it had potential.
It needed a lot more capital. Basically, it for what it was trying to do, it had to have more of a revolving amount of artwork on display. It got stagnant. It turned into a museum. It just was like the same stuff there all the time.
Bunch of nice Clinton work.
Yeah, a lot of old
really
Clinton,
nice.
Roman,
but how many times do you need to go see it?
Yeah, right. But no, so that's where I think it was you guys doing the Chalice event. Hitman, what was
For
that?
sure, yeah.
Started, yeah.
So I'm in there still doing my production work, as I'd call it, and I understand the value of it. I'm there to make my tubes. And next thing you know, I look behind me, and there's like 20 of the headiest artists from around the country. They're there for Chalice, and I'm seeing Jops and Slings and, like gosh, you name them,
Yeah.
elbows,
Darby.
tubas,
Yeah.
everyone, and they're all
JD,
kind of working together and handing off little parts and collabing, and I'm just like, holy hell, how do I get in on this? And so I always understood, like, you know, art versus craft, and that's what I valued the pipe as, was my craft. I do music, I have other ways to get my like artistic ansias out, if you will. So glass was always it's like, I don't want to, it's already stressful to fuck with, it's hard to mess with. You're trying to fire and to keep things
Catastrophic
straight
failure just lurking around the whole time.
Spend all night to just watch it go in less than a second.
I've seen it.
So it's heartbreaking. So, but at that time I mean, I'm not going to say jealous, more envious of like, wow, like look at these guys. Like, you can be an artist. You can create the stuff you want to build and what's in your vision. And, there's still the craft. You still have to have the mechanics behind it. And so I went back to 7th grade in my mind. We had to draw a picture in art class. It consisted of shapes, a point of light, and then the shadow of the shape. And that was, I guess, the practice in that work. And so that's what I did. I took the cylinder, the cone, and the sphere, and I was like, I'm just going to build these shapes and use that as like my, canvas, if you will. Totally. And then my collab is going to be like art, my canvas. I'll take full control of it. I'll, do the heavy lifting, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But then that, I think, is what, kind of enticed guys that I felt were out of my caliber to work with me. Because they're just like, oh, all I got to do is handy parts. Like, fuck yeah. Like,
that, but also you were delivering the goods. Like you were making a piece that they were proud to be a part of.
Totally.
You did that. What you like. What you just explained is you came up with a concept, and that is all your own, and then put something together, and then did it a bunch of times, and then got that pretty clean, and now and of course, I mean, one of the things that I've been saying within the other podcasts that I think is rad about specifically the American glass pipe movement, contemporary glass pipe movement, is how the different styles develop and then come together and create unique pieces that who would have ever imagined it if it wasn't different people's styles perfecting their styles to the mastering, perfecting, and then coming together and then mashing those two up.
It's kind of unlike most arts. I only found it like really in, I guess, the jam band scene and in the jazz world. Was that you have
collaborating,
two successful people in their own rights come together and work together. And, no offense to any other arts, but it's, I don't see a lot of like woodworker collabs.
Yeah.
Or,
They're probably, I would say maybe like graffiti. There's probably, like
graffiti,
murals.
I could see
there's
that.
some,
I could see
it's
that.
not in time. And then, you see some tattooers might do, group pieces.
But I feel that
for
it's
the
still
most
even
part,
more modern thing. Right?
It is. You're right.
Taggers
You're
used
right.
to cross each other out and
You're
take
right.
over their name. So it was like,
it's a collab.
Yeah.
Well,
what do we call it? Force collab.
Yeah, totally.
When you're making money, it's not many other people share their buyers or share their shops, and we 100% do. And I'm sure some people kind of keep some little, aces up their sleeve, but it's a very giving situation in that manner where
I do think that's a little more contemporary. I feel like, at least when I was in Washington, what's funny to me is you describe a lot of closed shops as far as kind of being guarded with technique. I feel like the techniques were shared, but the customers were
locked.
Oh yeah. If you had like a crush or a one of those, I mean, like after Pipe Dreams, to get a distributor, like a wholesaler that's just make your shit and I buy it, that was like the golden goose. I mean, there was many years there where it's like, okay, everything I make, what's happening here, and so when somebody oh god, this used to kill me, man. Like it'd be like, oh, I went home for Christmas, or so I went to I went somewhere, and while I was gone, the golden goose came through the shop, established a connection with like 2 of the shop mates left, and it's like they're just and they ain't sharing, and they ain't sharing, back then. So, and I agree that today, the internet also made it a little bit inevitable that the combination of direct to customer being possible, stores being able to find the artists and communicate with them, not just easier but quicker, and then all the technique is, I mean, we got into it in the late 90s, and we can feel a little bit of that, like part of that old school of like, it's not so much that we want to be miserly, but don't give it away so quickly, because we also like got to protect ourselves, and like you dilute anything, it gets shittier and it gets harder to make a living doing it. And so, but at the same time, you can't resist what is happening. And so with the internet, somebody with a few years of experience can teach whatever they know, and that's fine now.
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a time where, I mean, the old school timey Italian, that was guarded family
hardcore
secret. So to come out of that and then hit now, there's always going to be a little bit of that sting. Like my double bubs were being built in China, like in the early 2000s. Like I'm in LA area, so that container hits, and all of a sudden I'm walking into shops, and they're selling it for, they're retailing it for less than my wholesale.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to show my triple bub.
Yeah.
And then they'd believe me. Oh, okay, that is you. Like, oh well, this is heavier glass, and I'm just like, close my little case and walk away. But then at the same time, like, okay, they don't need me. I'm only one guy. Let me find who needs me, who wants me. And there was plenty of shops to support, quote unquote, the American artist.
Yeah.
That valued, oh, this guy can only make so many a week. He can only, we're lucky if, I remember it was like, your stuff's on order for 4 months before I can get to it. If I work as hard as I can through this, what I have here, like, it's going to be a minute. So, I think, and then I knew as well with glass, like, the least amount of pieces I can make for that number, the better off I am. And so, so we got into the larger tubes, and it's like, oh, I can do this in an hour, And but yeah, now the game's out there, like, we're watching Kurt B show off his stuff, like Kuhn showing off his stuff, like. But even then, I see that stuff as, as I'm a little bit further in my lane. I have no desire to walk those spaces.
Make your own white, dude.
Like, crush it.
Yeah.
But it's amazing what they do with that, using technology and pushing forward.
Kurt's a great example of combining the mind of an artist and the mind of a craftsman and the mind of a technician. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait till we get him on.
I love his stuff.
He's the best.
And then the fact that you're willing to do that and show that side of you, is, I think, shows maturity, shows, that you're comfortable where you're at, you're confident with what you do. We've seen KSR come up.
Oh yeah.
I remember he was coming in his, his flat boots and, right after work, and I'm like, what are you doing over here? He's like, but I saw him show initiative. He was there every freaking
He
day.
loves
that's
he
what it
loves
takes.
both of you
Yeah.
so much, because you guys gave him the time of day. Like,
we did.
He always mentions it. He was like,
that's
I took
rad.
these lessons at Goosefire, and he was like, Leland was awesome, but he was like, Boom did not have to, and just like kind of was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that's Boom, man. If you ever
Yeah.
get the chance
Yeah.
to just have a fucking conversation with this guy, it's always
Someone showing initiative and
Yeah.
passion, I'd gravitate towards
Yeah.
that stuff.
So then to drift into some
ocean.
exactly. Look at that, nice
So,
segue. But so for probably no one knows, or a few people out there, or actually probably everyone watching this knows this, but we're in a band together.
I was gonna get
we're
to the
Weekend
music.
Warriors. But Boom is a bass player as well as a recording producer, engineer. The dojo, which we affectionately call, which is his home studio, is both. That's what it is. It's a home studio, but it's also a place we party.
What's cool is I would say like 80-90%, especially the old school pipe makers, all have are multi-talented. Like you don't just make pipes. So it's just like we've had Gasp, who's like a drummer, and and then we have Muller, who's a drummer. I mean, I've mostly had drummers, but I figured I'd give a bass player.
A musician or a skater.
But Sabelle, it's like just so like it's like all these different crafts. Yeah, skate. Oh,
and one thing I think is
skater.
fun being my age is seeing some of the guys like Muller who had put music in the past a little bit and then achieved success with glass and then is able to fall in love with music again.
Mm-hmm. Especially with his daughter.
And then his daughters and his,
But so Boom
singer.
not only plays bass in our band, but he also has
Many bands.
The band called Session B.
Session B.
Plays for George Lopez.
Yeah, we were
get into
lucky.
that. Yeah.
We open up the doors, but we get to play in front of 6,000 people.
I mean, the Forum, that's a 15,000, 17,000 person venue.
Microsoft. Which a lot of bands don't. So we were really lucky with that. And so
you've played his pool party.
Oh, yeah. All kinds of fun. I've always been a little bit privileged to that kind of celebrity scene down here. And it's rad. It's freaking awesome. But like George, he doesn't give anything to anybody. He just, here you go. So then we had to, all right, how do we get these casino acts? How do we do this and keep the band exciting? And I think that was one of my joking little sayings is I blow glass to support my music career. So because, again, I understood the craft, and then the music, I still do a ton of covers, and I love that. But we've always, High Plains Crew, we call it, where we just make it up,
The two of you have a new project coming together, a fun little
Sade tribute band. Playing these casinos. That we learned they'll pay a lot more for a tribute act. So we're like, all right, we have the right players. We forced Ruzi in on percussion, and it already sounds fantastic. We're barely a month or two into it, but again, those are like when I'm not busy with glass, I'm busy with the music and even recording other bands and helping produce those projects where, like through the pandemic, they were like, don't leave home. I'm like, cool. Like, I'll just go from my shop to my to the dojo. So
the pandemic unfortunately played a role also in Boom. I mean, our bass player, our original bass player, close friend of all of ours named Dusty, did pass away during the pandemic, and we had just done our first live stream and completed recording at the dojo with Boom as our producer, and no one knew the songs better and also played bass and was a better friend of ours than Adam, and
it made perfect sense.
It just so in the spirit of Dusty, R.I.P. We love you, buddy, but also stoked to have our little music project as well. Not to get heavy, sorry, but
no, that was that was a big thing that happened. Right? We were done with it.
I know,
and it was on New Year's.
There was no warning either. Yeah, there was no there was no lead up or any anticipation. It was a very sudden thing.
Yeah. And that's one thing I mean. Yeah, I haven't really been into metal since I was like 16, 17, actually playing it. And so I was a little bit hesitant to ask, but it took you guys like a couple months. And you're like, well, would you be interested? And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do this. And another just awesome outlet artistically, I get to bang my head.
Riffs.
And,
feel
like
and you bring, and you Dusty was an amazing bass player, a real bassist.
Oh,
but you're equally, good. You don't, the bass lines I've been impressed with, when we get the recordings and I listen and I'm able to be hyper critical of everybody's parts. Everyone does a great job of having their own voice and bringing that personality to our band. So Drift in the Ocean, available on Spotify and
everything, YouTube,
all that stuff,
Apple Music.
I'm sure we'll throw a link up on there.
Reverb.
Mir Labs.
Or Labs.
Yes,
Or Labs.
Matt, we've mentioned him many times in this interview. Matt and Megan. Matt is the other guitar player in our band. The primary sort of writes the core arrangements that we all then add our flair to. And yeah, it's been a really fun project, man. It's been a fun group of homies, homeboys, being able to rock out. We a fond memory with that is playing the Molten Art Classic while the Kiln Buster, the famous $1 million piece, was being constructed by some of Glassblower's finest, the pipe making scene's finest, and we were out there rocking, and it was pretty fun, right?
Oh,
you know, it'd be fun to do more of those. We don't play a lot of live shows. We try to maybe one, two a year, but it's fun to play glass events to kind of keep that that unique character there.
Well, I think we're now that Matt's off tour, he's been on tour with his other band. So
Ariska.
Ariska, check him out. Very good black metal.
Yeah, we need to take advantage of some of these venues we have the capability.
Yeah. Well, one cool thing is as we speak, artwork is being done for what will be our first release, our first record physical release. We do have 3 songs right now on all the platforms, but then we have 4 more coming out that will also be on an LP early in 2025.
Pretty
artwork,
cool artist.
Done by Nick. I can't remember his last name, but did artwork for Necrogoblicon. So
Primus,
sorts of,
dope,
super dope dude, super
heady,
dope style.
heady artist.
And we met him because of Sibeli. So all branches, roads lead back to the Temple of Doom.
The Temple of Doom.
Well, word up, brother.
Yeah,
I think that's been a fun talk.
Anything
You're
else?
so close to the fam that I imagine we'll have more conversations in the
Sure.
future. But I hate to say it, I really had no idea that it's Boom Feel Lazy.
Boom Feel Lazy. That's what it is.
Social media, give it to us. IG.
Just IG, really. Boom Felazi Glass. I don't even know what my G is. So
BOOMFELIZA.
BOOMFELAZI.
Oh.
Yeah, Boom Felazi.
Yourself a boom.
You can find me out there.
Yeah, you can find them. Boom Felazi, Adrift in the Ocean.
I think.
Is that it?
Oh yeah,
Like,
as we try to build the YouTube channel, like this post, subscribe. We'll be doing some giveaways. Talk is cheap, but it'll happen. I imagine a Govey tube or 2 will be given away for sure. I'm going to throw in a marble
soon.
and a pendant and probably a Sherlock. And
maybe once we hit 100 subscribers.
Yeah, 100 seems like a good one for the first giveaway, of which we're not going to make a commitment of what it'll be quite yet.
I can donate a boom tube.
You know what I'm saying? As it goes along, it'll get even better, reach around, fucking all sorts of stuff.
That's Derek's Kickstarter, so you can hit him up over there.
It's special messages just from Derek.
Yep.
It's not a bad idea.
Love you.
All right, love you too, brother.
Yeah,
right on.
Thank you,
man.
man.
Thank you. Yeah.
Temple of Doom.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Peace.
That's awesome.